Hurricane Sandy ripped through Long Island in October 2012, paralyzing infrastructure, evacuating homes, businesses, and hospitals, and leaving millions of people in the dark. The storm also sent 9 feet of salt water into the Bay Park wastewater plant, a facility serving more than 500,000 people in Nassau County, dumping enormous quantities of raw and partially treated sewage into Hempstead Bay. The plant was completely offline for 2 days, causing a public health emergency, with limited wastewater treatment for months following the storm. It also made boating and swimming dangerous, and it further damaged coastal wetlands already weakened by nitrogen pollution, compromising the safety of mainland communities that depend on them as a natural defense against even moderate storm events. Suffolk County, too, was put at greater risk by wastewater pollution from substandard septic systems and cesspools. With compromised coastal wetlands, residents became even more vulnerable to the extreme weather becoming more common to the East Coast. But Governor Cuomo got to work. He charged state agencies to work with Nassau and Suffolk counties to find fixes and increase resiliency. The governor secured $810 million to rebuild and upgrade the Bay Park plant and to establish engineered protections against the 500-year storm. Today, Long Island will take another step forward to improve treatment, reduce pollution, and increase sustainability. Working with Suffolk and Nassau counties, New York State is advancing projects to build Long Island back better, stronger, and more resilient than ever before.
Good morning. I'm Jamie Rubin, Director of the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. It's my privilege to welcome you to this conference on Long Island water quality. I'd like to start by introducing the distinguished members of our table and some of those in our audience. To my left, Suffolk County Executive Steve Malone. I'd ask also that you hold your applause until the end. We've got quite a number of people here to thank. County Executive Steve Malone, Nassau County Executive Ed Mangano, Congressman Tim Bishop, Southampton Supervisor Anna Thronholst, DEC Commissioner Joe Martens, President and CEO of the Environmental Facilities Corporation of the State of New York, Matt Driscoll, Stony Brook President Samuel Stanley, and of course the Governor of the State of New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo. In the audience, among others, Assemblyman Steve Engelbright, Assemblyman Fred Thiel, Assemblyman Ed Hennessy, Assemblyman Joseph Saladino, Assemblyman Michael Fitzpatrick, Assemblyman Anthony Palumbo, President of the Long Island Association and Long Island REDC Co-Chair Kevin Law, and of course all the other distinguished elected officials who have joined us. And thank you very much to St. John's University for kindly hosting us today in this beautiful facility. We're gathered on Long Island at the second anniversary of Superstorm Sandy to talk about some of the work Governor Cuomo and his administration are doing to protect the state against future great storms. What you'll hear today reflects the governor's commitment to using the best available environmental strategies to drive multiple long-term policy goals. The end result will be a safer and more sustainable Long Island. Taking a step back first, we should remind ourselves of the size and enormous impact of Superstorm Sandy. I don't have to tell anybody in this room, 300,000 housing units throughout the state were damaged, many beyond repair. 2 million people lost power, most here on Long Island, of course. More than 2,000 miles of road were affected or closed, and most tragically, 61 New Yorkers lost their lives as a result of Sandy. As the governor often says, Sandy taught us that we face a new reality when it comes to the threat of extreme weather. Sandy was the third major storm to hit New York in a 2-year period, and the 8th natural disaster since the governor was elected. Of course, Sandy was by far the largest, and the size and ambition of our response had to match it. 2 years later, the governor's recovery strategy has done just that. Under his leadership, the state government has made a massive commitment to recovery, preparedness, and resiliency. Making this possible, of course, is $30 billion of federal funding secured just after Sandy by Governor Cuomo and our congressional delegation. The first priority must always be recovery. Tens of thousands of Long Island homes suffered severe damage, and while flood insurance has helped many to recover, the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery has worked tirelessly to remove the red tape that stands in the way of people returning home. To date, we've sent almost $500 million to 9,000 Long Island homeowners and awarded over $23 million to 600 small businesses that were impacted by Sandy. Of course, we know the job is far from done, and we work every day to serve people faster and more effectively. The Governor has also led an aggressive statewide campaign to make sure that citizens will not face the next disaster unprepared. To that end, the state has established a Citizen Preparedness Corps training program to teach people how to respond better in emergencies. In January, the Governor proposed to create the nation's first College of Emergency Preparedness and Homeland Security based at SUNY. In April, the State Department of Motor Vehicles began issuing first responders special red license plates with emergency management identification to make sure that they have full access to disaster sites. And in the coming year, the state will roll out the nation's most advanced weather detection system at sites across the state. Finally, and what we're here to talk about today, the third pillar is a massive $20 billion commitment to resilience. From the first days after Sandy, the Governor drove every agency with a role in the recovery to build to higher standards, sized to meet what were clearly new and far more threatening weather realities. The emphasis on resilience pervades every part of this ambitious plan from the bottom up, for example, the $650 million community reconstruction program, and from the top down. Many New Yorkers have chosen to live by the water. A few months ago in Freeport, Long Island, the Governor announced the launch of the New York Rising Home Elevation Program. We will pay under that program almost 3,000 homeowners to elevate their homes far above the new base flood levels at a cost of up to $300 million in total. In addition, for the thousands of homeowners who choose to move inland, we've created a program to purchase their homes. We've already spent over $200 million through this program on Long Island, upstate, and on Staten Island in New York City. To protect public transportation, the backbone of this region's economy, the Governor and the MTA have pledged to invest $5 billion in a tremendous overhaul of the entire system. Among many other actions, the MTA has taken aggressive steps to prevent water intrusion in its tunnels and has repaired heavily used subway tubes throughout the system. On the Long Beach branch of the LIRR, the MTA is spending $120 million to replace and improve substations, generators, signals, and tracks. And finally, we're rethinking how we invest in energy infrastructure of all kinds. The Governor's launched a $40 million microgrid competition that will jumpstart the development of fully resilient electrical networks in vulnerable communities. Learning from the massive outage in the days after Sandy, LIPA is spending almost $100 million to elevate substations all throughout the system. And we've set up a $3 million gallon strategic gasoline reserve as a pilot program to ensure that motorists and first responders will never again struggle to find fuel in a disaster. Back in January, the Governor told Vice President Joe Biden up in Albany that the new reality in New York is we're getting hit by 100-year storms every couple of years. New York State government has recognized this sad fact, and just 24 months after Sandy, New Yorkers are more prepared than ever before. Today, we have another very exciting announcement to build back better and stronger. To begin our discussion, I'd like to introduce Joe Martens, New York State Department of Commissioner of New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Joe.
Thank you, Jamie, and good afternoon, Governor, distinguished guests. I'm delighted to provide a brief overview of our efforts to improve coastal resiliency and water quality in Nassau and Suffolk counties. This spring, Governor Cuomo presented to us an entirely new challenge to restore Long Island's water quality and to improve coastal resiliency. The Governor clearly thinks big. He directed DEC to conduct a review of the clean water needs on Long Island and develop a report with recommendations on increasing resiliency and improving water quality. We worked closely with other state agencies like the Environmental Facilities Corporation and the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery, Stony Brook University, Nassau and Suffolk counties, and the town of Southampton to develop the report, which you should have copies of today. Since April, our working group has heard from dozens of leading researchers, experts from Stony Brook University, organizations like the Nature Conservancy, and from many members of the public. We held 3 hearings across Long Island, and we also toured the Forge River with County Executive Ballone, and I have to say that tour was an eye-opener for me. Based on what we learned during those meetings and from the tour of the Forge River, the working group determined that a major environmental and resiliency problem is nitrogen pollution. We know Long Islanders love their oceans and bays, but no one loves it when the water and beaches are discolored during algae blooms due to excess nitrogen. Nitrogen, as the county executive is fond of saying, is enemy number 1 on Long Island. The simple truth is that nitrogen degrades coastal wetlands over time and has a severe adverse impact on coastal resiliency and water quality. Most of the nitrogen pollution comes from septic systems and certain wastewater treatment facilities on Long Island. 80 to 90% of the nitrogen discharge to the western bays comes from the Bay Park sewage treatment plant, and an estimated 65% of the nitrogen pollution that enters Suffolk County estuaries is from hundreds of thousands of individual septic systems and cesspools that are simply not designed to remove nitrogen. The report we are issuing today identifies a number of critical steps that will address the excess nitrogen pollution from the Bay Park wastewater treatment plant in Nassau County and from failing septic systems that degrade wetlands and reduce natural protections against storm in Suffolk County. The next series of speakers will outline those steps that will set us on a path towards a cleaner, more resilient Long Island. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Suffolk County Chief Executive Steve Cuomo today, Suffolk County water quality, as well as microphone control, a priority of his administration. Here to talk specifically about the situation that Suffolk County faces, Steve Ballone.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you very much, everyone, Commissioner Martens. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I can tell you that I'm very excited today, and first and foremost, want to thank Governor Cuomo for being back here once again on Long Island to help us build back from storm damage and to make our infrastructure more resilient moving forward. Governor Cuomo, I can tell you, we've been together at events like this and out in the field, has been with us. One of those pictures we saw was before the storm happened, preparing for the storm when we all hoped it wouldn't happen. And it happened, and it was worse than ever before. And the governor was there with us before, during, in the recovery, immediately after the storm, and he's been with us for these entire 2 years, helping us to deal not only with Superstorm Sandy, but a lot of the other challenges, natural disasters we faced here in Suffolk County. And Governor, I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done for Suffolk County and all of our residents. We have discussed many times before the fact that storms are becoming more severe around New York State, and particularly, I can say, here in Suffolk County. Superstorm Sandy damaged not only our homes, but our businesses, our infrastructure, and our beautiful natural resources. And those natural resources include our coasts and our wetlands, which are our natural storm barriers that are there to protect us from future storms like Sandy. We all saw that destruction, and we've worked tirelessly right up to this day to rebuild Suffolk County and make it more resilient for future storms. And I'm pleased today, excited today, that we're announcing a series of initiatives and actions to bolster coastal resiliency against future storms here on Long Island by improving water quality and reducing harmful nitrogen pollution. This has been a signature issue of my administration, and I am excited that we're taking this important and critical step moving forward today. Superstorm Sandy significantly impacted Long Island's wastewater treatment facilities, and highlighted how vulnerable our region's bays and marshlands are to excessive nitrogen pollution. Governor Cuomo today has identified up to $383 million for proposed coastal resiliency and water quality projects to extend sewers in Suffolk County in 4 areas. These key projects are projects my administration has advanced, and couldn't be happier today that they will be able to move forward. They are first around the Forge River. An estimated $196 million project would address storm impacts and reduce excessive nitrogen pollution to the Forge River and the Great South Bay. The proposed project would connect parcels in the area to a new sewer collection system that would flow to a new wastewater treatment plant that would include nitrogen treatment located on municipal property near Brookhaven Town Airport. Second project around the Carls River. An estimated $136 million project that would address storm impacts and reduce nitrogen and pathogen pollution in the Carls River and the Great South Bay. The proposed project would connect parcels to the Bergen Point sewer system within the Southwest Sewer District. Around the Connecticut River, an estimated $33 million would be used to address nitrogen pollution and pathogens in Connecticut River, Nichols Bay, and the Great South Bay. The proposed project would connect parcels to the Bergen Point sewer system. And around the Patchogue River, an estimated $18 million would be used to address nitrogen and pathogen pollution in the Patchogue River and the Great South Bay. The proposed project would connect parcels to the Patchogue sewer system within the Patchogue Sewer District. These projects are an important step to help Suffolk County recover from Superstorm Sandy and will dramatically jumpstart our comprehensive efforts to reduce nitrogen pollution. And on behalf of my colleagues in the legislature, including our presiding officer, Dwayne Gregory, and particularly so many of our legislators on the South Shore and those who have been fighting hard for water quality and coastal resiliency, I want to thank our local partners, Babylon Town Supervisor Rich Schaefer, Islip Supervisor Tom Croce, Brookhaven Supervisor Ed Romaine, and Patchogue Village Mayor Paul Pontieri. Thank you for your support and your partnership. On the most critical issue facing our region. And finally, once again, my thanks to Governor Cuomo and New York State for recognizing and leading on this issue. We are grateful for this assistance as we work to build back from these storms, and we commit that we will continue to focus on building back better and stronger than ever before, which has been the mantra of the governor from day one. Thank you, Governor.
One of the signature events of Superstorm Sandy was the brief failure of the Bay Park wastewater treatment plant in Nassau County. County Executive Ed Mangano and his team led the recovery and are now taking important steps to rebuild and protect that plant. So County Executive Ed Mangano.
Thank you, Jamie. It's a pleasure to join with you all today, and especially to join with Governor Cuomo, who is here for the pre-planning storm, was here, boots on the ground during the storm, and certainly, while we're here today, his post-storm recovery and rebuilding commitment. Thank you, Governor Cuomo. all our residents are seeing firsthand the devastating effects of Superstorm Sandy, whether it be the 74,000 homes that were destroyed, the 400 businesses, or our government infrastructure, our environment. The storm had a devastating effect on our residents, on our infrastructure, and on our economy. Homes and businesses, infrastructure, and our environment. As part of the destruction, the storm caused tremendous damage to our Bay Park sewage treatment plant. In fact, the plant took on over 9 feet of water. During the storm, it knocked out the power, and the plant serves 500,000 people. Devastating. Homes, businesses, educational institutions, hospitals. Working together with the federal and state officials, we've been repairing and strengthening this plant since the storm, making it more efficient, more resilient, and environmentally friendly. Thanks to the efforts of Governor Cuomo and our federal partners, we've secured $830 million in federal and state funds, and that's a great achievement. We thank you, Governor. Repairs are underway with protective measures that will provide an engineered resiliency against a 500-year flood. Construction is now underway on a 1.5 mile long seawall and land berm that is comprised of a slurry wall 30 feet deep and a clay core, and a land berm that rises 14 feet above the ground to protect our investment, our coastline, and our infrastructure. But today's news means we can move even faster. That's why I'm pleased to announce that Governor Cuomo and his administration is advancing $97 million of the funds so Nassau County does not have to wait for the funds to be released. This will speed up the project. We thank you again, Governor Cuomo, our federal officials, and all those. The storm also presents an opportunity for us to clean up our environment. The governor and Nassau County are continuing to advocate to FEMA for the funds needed to build an ocean outfall pipe. The ocean outfall pipe for those of you that are not familiar, presently right now, if you can believe it in this day and age, we discharge our wastewater right into the back bay, right into the channel where people swim, fish, and recreational boat. So this project is a priority project as well, and we appreciate the partnership and advocacy that we're getting from the state and our federal officials. Eliminating the existing outfall in the back bay will dramatically improve our local water quality and protect extensive marshlands in that area, which serves as a natural flood protection barrier for our southern Nassau County. Improving water quality and storm resiliency on Long Island is vital and is a continuing effort. I'm glad that we have a true partner in Governor Cuomo and our state officials and our local officials as well as those on the federal level. Thank you, Governor Cuomo. Recovery, particularly from a storm as devastating as Sandy, is a long road. But with the state behind us, we will rebuild smarter and stronger than ever before.
Now it's my pleasure to introduce Supervisor of Southampton, Anna Thronholst, who has been a leading voice on this issue since the beginning.
Thank you, Jamie.
Supervisor.
Thank you all. And it really is an honor to be here today, and I'd be lying if I wouldn't say it's a really great pleasure too, because this is the culmination of some really great work among some real visionary people. And Commissioner Martens and everyone else who, and especially our governor, who allowed a small town with a big idea to bring it to you and to all of you, and you listened and you took it to heart, and here we are today putting it to work. And I think that is the sign of just amazing leadership, and our governor has shown that throughout his administration. And we on Long Island are now the very lucky recipients of that hard work. So strengthening resilience and improving our water quality on Long Island is an issue that is very close to my heart and has been a big part of our work in my administration. And so I have the very great honor of being able to announce today a new initiative at Stony Brook University, which will now be a center to address this issue. We've heard today, and all of us who've been working in the aftermath of Sandy and also with the scientific community addressing the fact that the nitrogen loading in our waterways presents not only an environmental, a public health, but an economic threat to our region that has to be addressed. So the road from identifying and understanding this issue to actually addressing it is the next and most important step. We know that major changes to our infrastructure, in particular our wastewater infrastructure, are needed in order to protect and restore our water quality as well as our resilience. And there is considerable room for improvement in technology available to meet this challenge. What we need are systems that can most effectively and cost efficiently remove nitrogen from our wastewater, technology that can realistically be deployed on a widespread basis because it both is affordable and works. As the governor said, we face a new normal when it comes to severe weather, as well as the threat to our environment and economic prosperity because of the nitrogen loading in our antiquated septic systems. And that is not only true for Long Island, it's true for the state on a national and on a global level. So, Stony Brook University's New York State Center for Clean Water Technology, which is now going to be instituted because of the vision of our governor, will now develop and commercialize the next generation of technology to remove nitrogen from septic systems and cesspool effluents. History has shown that in times of scientific and technological need, if resources are properly marshaled, ingenuity flourishes and solutions are developed. So this is a tremendous win-win. Cleaning up our environment at the same time as sparking future job creation and growing new industries, and right here on Long Island. So to do this, the governor, Suffolk County, and Stony Brook University are designating $2 million from this year's state budget to establish the center as part of a long-term initiative. So I'm not only proud, but truly excited that Stony Brook will be a global leader in storm recovery with this new facility and nitrogen reduction technology, whose work will hopefully help communities across the entire world build back again. So I again want to thank the public that came out. We had some great public forums where the public came and gave their opinion and listened in and understood the gravity of this. And I want especially to thank Jen Garvey, who is my chief of staff and the one who germinated this idea. And we ran with it, and we brought it all the way to the governor's office. And smart minds like hers are ones you should keep your eyes on because it's our future. So thank you, Governor. We're so excited, and we thank you for sharing our vision on it.
Finally, Congressman Bishop, if you would make some remarks.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here with all of you and to be joined by my fellow electeds and my fellow colleagues in government, and particularly to have the governor here on Long Island. I want to start by commending the governor for his commitment to Long Island, to our recovery, and to our future resiliency. This is the kind of leadership that we need, and this is the kind of leadership that the governor has provided on this and so many other issues. So, Governor, thank you very much. I just want to make a couple of points. First, it should be self-evident that when we invest in water infrastructure, wastewater infrastructure, drinking water infrastructure, everybody wins. The people who build it have good, solid, good-paying jobs. So the economy wins. The environment wins because we're protecting the environment, which is the most precious element, it seems to me, for Long Island. And I think for Long Island, like many other places in the country, it is impossible to distinguish the environment from our economy. Our economy is the environment, and the environment is the economy. And so I think this kind of investment is crucial. It's the kind of investment that a number of us have been working on for a long, long time. Ed Romaine and I have been working on the Forge River for a long, long time. Paul Pontieri and I have been working on the Patchogue River for a long, long time. But now we have the money to do what we've needed, what we've known we've needed to do. And we have the governor to thank for that. So let me introduce our governor with my thanks for his leadership, his vision, his responsiveness, and his commitment to Long Island. My friend, Governor Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, today is a special treat. And first, this was the product of literally months and months of work by a dedicated group of people. There were a series of public hearings, meetings with local officials, so a lot of work went into coming up with this plan, and we want to thank everyone involved. First to Jamie Rubin, who leads the state's reconstruction efforts overall. He's done a magnificent job. Let's give him a round of applause. We have Mr. John Kamen with us, who heads up the efforts on Long Island and also has to handle all the retail efforts, and you know how difficult that can be, and he's doing an extraordinary job. Give him a round of applause. Commissioner Joseph Martens, I think this is going to go down in his long resume of great environmental accomplishments, and this one is going to be right up at the top for a long time. Joe Martens, thank you. Supervisor Anna Thronholst can make nitrogen loading sound fun and exciting, actually. And she was a great and tenacious advocate in pointing out that this was a long-term problem that finally had to be dealt with, and this was an opportunity to do it. Supervisor Anna Thronholst. Dr. Stanley in Stony Brook, which is a research engine, an educational engine, and an economic development engine here on the island that's doing a great job. Thank you very much for being with us. We have Matt Driscoll, who's been a vital part of keeping this state's environment protected and actually improving it, and he's been a vital part of this effort. Thank you very much, Matt. Congressman Tim Bishop, let me say this. None of this happens but for $60 billion in federal aid that we get from Washington, D.C. The supplemental appropriation. Hold on a second. Hold. Don't step on the punchline. It doesn't happen without $60 billion. No one had ever requested $60 billion in supplemental aid before. When we put the request on the table, all the Washington geniuses called me up and said, it's an outrageous request, it'll never happen. I said, but that's what we need. They said, you have to ask for less because it's impossible. I said, I'm not going to ask for less than we need. And we had champions in the congressional delegation. And if it wasn't for Congressman Bishop, and he's not here today, but truth, Congressman Peter King, they took the ball. I spoke to them every day. They refused to take no for an answer, and they came home with $60 billion. County Executive Ed Mangano and County Executive Ballone, they are extraordinary leaders for their respective counties. You know that on every level. Their leadership has been tested over and over again on the myriad of responsibilities that an executive has. People say to me that it seems like I have a special relationship with Ed Mangano and Steve Ballone. And I do. And it came from what you saw on that screen. When you are out there day and night together, watching people's lives get washed away and holding people while they're crying and they're seeing everything they own destroyed. And you see who rises to the occasion and who shrinks from the occasion. It's not just about politics, it's not about government, it's about the character of people. And you get a glimpse of their soul, and you get a glimpse of what they're really made of when times are tough. And I can tell you, Ed Mangano and Steve Ballone, on a personal level, forget everything else, as human beings, as men, these are the guys you want to be with in the foxhole when the enemy is coming at you. These are the guys you want at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're not sure what's going to happen and you have nowhere else to go and no one else to rely on but each other. And to me, that's what leadership is all about. It comes down to character. And it's the character of Ed Mangano and the character of Steve Ballone that I applaud, and we should all applaud today. And last but certainly not least, we have our Assembly and Senate delegation here today. The Assembly and Senate delegation have had a special relationship with me. The norm in Albany was what you now see in Washington. It was constant gridlock. Democrats and Republicans fought with each other just because that's what you did, you know. It was sort of a team sport. Each one rooted for their own team, and they just bumped heads on whatever the question was. And the people suffered, because when you paralyze government, the people suffer. When the government stops moving and that paralysis sets in, you get nothing done, everyone gets hurt. And in many ways, it was the politicians putting their own politics before public service. We changed that. And we gave each other the benefit of the doubt, and we treated each other like professionals, and we put the politics second to the public service, and we put the allegiance to the state of New York ahead of the allegiance to our political parties. None of this happens without the Assembly and Senators who are here today, and I would ask them to stand, and let's give them a round of applause. A couple of points because it's all been said. Hurricane Sandy was one of the worst things that anyone expected to go through or that we could go through. What do you do in the aftermath? Everything you can. And with an attitude that says, okay, we got knocked on our rear end, we're going to pick ourselves up, and we're going to use this as an opportunity to learn and to improve ourselves, right? And that's life lesson number one. You're going to get knocked down. Tough things are going to happen in life. It's called life, one way or the other. Something's going to happen. And the question is really how you react to what happens. And do you wallow in the mire, or do you get up off the canvas, and do you learn from the experience, and do you improve? And we said that we were going to take Hurricane Sandy as a learning experience and as an opportunity to improve. And we said that was the silver lining, to build back better. Not to build back what was, to build back better. Because that's New York's life mentality. To take the tough, to take the blow, and to come back better. Second point, part of what happened in Hurricane Sandy was unexpected and unimaginable. And when I was talking about Ed and Steve, when we were out there, the way bad things domino and the exponential effect of collapses is extraordinary. One pole falls, takes down a wire, the wire hits a generator, the generator starts a fire. It's just a compounding of chaos that is unimaginable. And part of it we couldn't have been prepared for because we had no right to expect. And it was a phenomenal learning experience, running out of gasoline. Who ever would have figured that they'd close the harbor, the barges would stop coming in with the fuel, we only had 1 day of fuel reserves, the pipeline that delivers gas to Long Island comes from New Jersey, but it's run by electric pumps. When the electric goes down, the pumps go down, so there's no gas that goes through the pump. You would have never imagined these things. And there was one set of those activities that were truly a learning experience. There was a second set of experiences that were the opposite, that were entirely predictable, which were things we have talked about for a long, long time. We just never did. Bay Park and the need to redo Bay Park was not a new issue. Bay Park is older than I am, and that is very, very old. We knew we had to do Bay Park. We knew we had a problem with excess nitrogen. We knew we were destroying our wetlands. We knew we had a problem with the Old Forge River. We knew we had a problem with the Patchogue River. We've talked about it for a long, long time. The state just never did anything about it, which is the next life motto, right? Denial is not a life strategy. It makes you feel better short term, but it's not a life strategy. The state was very, very good at denial. That's what it did for 50 years. I love the best metaphor to me is the Tappan Zee Bridge. Tappan Zee Bridge goes from Westchester to Rockland. For 20 years, they have said the bridge was falling down. 20 years, governors get up. The Tappan Zee must be replaced because it's falling down. Except they never replaced the Tappan Zee Bridge. Year after year after year. And it was almost laughable, except it was also frightening if you ever drove over the Tappan Zee Bridge. But that was the attitude. Well, we'll just put it off, we'll put it off, we'll put it off, we'll put it off. That doesn't work. That doesn't work, and we've done that with a lot of problems on Long Island for a long time. Which takes us to the third life motto: never waste a crisis. Hurricane Sandy was a crisis. Hurricane Sandy brought focus. Hurricane Sandy generated energy. It brought politicians together. It sparked the public's interest. It sparked newspaper articles. It sparked analysis. What happened? Why? What do we learn? Seize that moment to actually do the work that you needed to do all along. Seize that moment, along with the $60 billion in funding that empowered that moment. Thank you, Congressman Bishop Peter King. But seize that moment to do the work we needed to do for a long, long time. Work which will be transformational, and which will be historic, and which will make major improvements to the environment of Long Island for decades and decades to come. Not just what we talked about today, finally getting rid of LIPA, which should have been done decades ago, with all due respect. Changing the generation system of how we use electricity on Long Island. Doing improvements to the MTA, which was very susceptible to any storm. Finally fixing Bay Park, which had to be done. And the county executive is exactly right. We are not going to stop until we get the outflow pipe from Bay Park, because it is ludicrous to be dumping the treated sewage right there on the coast. and other states have outflow pipes that go out a mile or 2 miles, and we're going to get the resources to do it. If we have to march on Washington, we're going to get the resources to do it. The second step is the sewering, especially in Suffolk. God bless counties. I'm glad to see there are other people. I thought only Steve Ballone got really excited about sewers. I've never seen a person get animated about sewers before. But you talk sewers with Steve Ballone, he lights up. Sewering in Suffolk, we have talked about for decades. And yes, it's an expensive proposition, and it is a big project, but it's something that we have to do. We'll do it in phases, but the $380 million is a heck of a big phase to start with, and it's an admission of this is what we have to do. And then Supervisor Anathrone-Holst's vision and the Stony Brook of capacity recognizes that this is not a Long Island problem. Nitrogen loading is a national and an international problem. And it is a problem where we should really bring new technology to bear. And there have to be better technological solutions to this problem than we've developed thus far. And let's take Stony Brook as an R&D facility. Let's put their great minds to work on this issue. If we figure out a solution on this issue, not only is it good for Long Island, we can commercialize it, it'll help the economic development, and we can make a difference literally in this country solving this problem. And if there's any place that can do it, it's Southampton and it's Stony Brook. And that's what today is all about. And at the end of the day, what we said at the beginning of the day on Hurricane Sandy is going to turn out to be true. When we were wet and soggy and people were crying and goods, their personal lives and belongings were strewn across the street, and we said, don't worry, we're going to stay together, we're not going anywhere, we're going to stay united, we're committed, we're dedicated, and we're going to stay at this. And at the end of the day, Long Island will be better for what happened. Long Island is better for what happened, thanks to the people in this room and the people around this table. And let's give them a round of applause, and thank you for being here. God bless you.